maintain mindfulness the entire way. Considering his hike to and from the village a form of walking meditation, he focused his attention inward every step of the way, ensuring that his mind did not venture out to become involved with any emotionally charged sense object along the route. Returning to his campsite, or the monastery where he resided, he arranged the food he had received in his alms bowl. As a matter of principle, he ate only the food he was offered in the village, refusing to accept any food brought to him afterward. Only much later, in his very old age, did he relax this practice somewhat, agreeing to accept food that the faithful offered him in the monastery. During his early years, he ate only the food he had received in his alms bowl. With everything to be eaten placed in the bowl, he sat contemplating the true purpose of the food. Superscript 1:6 He was about to eat as a means of dousing the inner fires of hell, that is to say, any craving for food that might arise due to hunger. Otherwise, the mind might succumb to the power of craving and indulge in the fine taste of food, when in fact, it should be reflecting on food's essential qualities, how all food, being simply a composition of gross elements, is inherently disgusting by its very nature. With this thought firmly fixed in his mind, he chewed his food mindfully to deny any opening to craving until he had finished the meal. Afterwards, he washed the bowl, wiped it dry, exposed it to direct sunlight for a few minutes, then replaced it in its cloth covering, and put it neatly away in its proper place. Then, it was time once again to resume the task of battling the kilesas, with the aim of destroying them gradually until they were thoroughly defeated and unable ever again to trouble his mind. It must be understood, however, that the business of destroying kilesas is an inexpressibly difficult task to accomplish. For though we may be determined to burn the kilesas to ashes, what invariably tends to happen is that the kilesas turn around and burn us, causing us so much hardship that we quickly abandon those same virtuous qualities that we meant to develop. We clearly see this negative impact and want to get rid of the kilesas, but then, we undermine our noble purpose by failing to act decisively against them, fearing that the difficulties of such action will prove too painful. Unopposed, the kilesas become lord masters of our hearts, pushing their way in and claiming our hearts as their exclusive domain. Sadly, very few people in this world possess the knowledge and understanding to counteract these defilements. Hence, living beings throughout the three worlds of existence are forever surrendering to their dominance. Only the Lord Buddha discovered the way to completely cleanse his heart of them. Never again did they defeat him. After achieving that comprehensive victory, the Lord Buddha compassionately turned his attention to teaching the way, proclaiming the Dhamma to his disciples and inspiring them to resolutely follow the same noble path that he had taken. Practicing thus, they were able to emulate his supreme achievement, reaching the very end of the noble path. The highest attainment, Nibbana. Dealing the all-powerful kilesas a fatal blow, these noble individuals eradicated them from their hearts forever. Having extinguished their kilesas, they became those arahant disciples that people the world over have worshipped with such devotion ever since. Achariya Mun was another noble individual, following in the footsteps of the Lord Buddha. He truly possessed unshakable faith and uncompromising resolve. He didn't merely talk about them. When the morning meal was over, he immediately entered the forest to begin walking meditation in those peaceful surroundings that were so conducive to calm and inner happiness. First walking, later sitting, he pursued his meditation until he felt the time was right to take a short rest. His strength renewed, he resumed his attack on the kilesas, creators of the endless cycle of existence. With such determination and steadfast application to the task, the kilesas were never given reason to scoff at Achariya Mun's efforts. While practicing samadhi intensively, he also worked tirelessly to develop insight, his wisdom revolving relentlessly around whatever object he was investigating. In that way, samadhi and vipassana were developed in tandem, neither one lagging behind the other, and his heart remained peaceful and contented in his practice. Still, periods of slow progress were inevitable, for he had no one to advise him when he got stuck. Often he spent many days working his way through a specific problem, painstakingly figuring out the solution for himself. He was obliged to exhaustively investigate these stumbling blocks in his practice, examining every facet carefully, because they were a hindrance to his progress and also potentially dangerous. In such situations, the advice of a good teacher can be invaluable, helping the meditator to advance quickly and confidently without wasting time. For this reason, it's very important that meditators have a Kalyamitta. Achariya Mun personally experienced the drawbacks of not having such a wise friend to give him timely advice, insisting that it was a definite disadvantage. Achariya saw Kantasilo. In his early years of practice, Achariya Mun often wandered Dutanga in the company of Achariya Sa, superscript 1-8, comforted in the knowledge that he had a good, experienced teacher to lend him support. But when he asked his teacher to advise him on specific problems arising in his meditation, Achariya Sa invariably replied, "My experiences in meditation are quite different from yours. Your siddha is so adventurous, tending always toward extremes. One moment it soars into the sky, only to plunge deep into the earth the next. Then, after diving to the ocean floor, it again soars up to walk meditation high in the sky. Who could possibly keep up with your siddha long enough to find a solution? I advise you to investigate these matters for yourself and find your own solutions." Achariya Sa never gave him enough concrete advice to really help him, so Achariya Mun was forced to solve his own problems. Sometimes, he nearly died before discovering a way past some of the more intractable problems he faced. Achariya Mun described his teacher as someone with a smooth, serene temperament who inspired deep devotion. A rather strange feature of Achariya Sa's practice was his tendency to levitate while in samadhi, his body hovering quite noticeably above the floor. At first, doubtful that his body was indeed floating, he opened his eyes to see for himself. As soon as his eyes opened, concern about the condition of his body caused his siddha to withdraw from samadhi. He promptly fell back to the floor, landing hard on his buttocks, which was sore and bruised for many days. In truth, his body did float about 3 feet above the floor. But by opening his eyes to check, he lost the mindfulness needed to maintain his siddha in samadhi. Withdrawing suddenly from samadhi caused him to come crashing to the floor, like any other object dropped from a height. Practicing samadhi later and feeling his body levitate again, he kept mindfulness firmly focused within that state of samadhi, and then, carefully opened his eyes to look at himself. It was obvious to him then that he did levitate. This time, however, he didn't.